Nina shuddered and woke up. The same nightmare that had been haunting her for 10 years. She's sitting on Marcus Nietta's bike, holding onto his waist, and suddenly feels a strong jolt. Then she's thrown onto a stone slab by the road, pain piercing through her whole body. They say you don't feel pain in dreams, but Nina did. That ride turned the girl into a disabled person, not in a dream, but in reality. "Mom, I think I'll go for a walk," Nina said at breakfast. "What's gotten into you? You don't like being seen by people." Her mother looked surprised at her daughter. "I'll just go here, along the sidewalk, and come back. I don't know, maybe new plots will come to mind for my fairy tales, otherwise I'll run out of ideas soon." "What plots can come to mind here? Cars rarely even pass by our street." Her mother always grumbled. Since her father left them, she became closed off and embittered. And then there was the tragedy with Nina, which happened literally a few weeks later. It finally broke the woman. Nina often felt like her mother blamed her for everything, although the divorce was long overdue. They were just too different from her father. The girl didn't blame her dad. She understood that he had finally found his true love, even though he was almost 50 at the time. Nina was on her way home when she saw them. Marcus was carrying a baby in his arms, and next to him was the once plain Ana Blanco. Tears welled up in her eyes, and Nina turned away, not wanting to meet his gaze. If it were up to her, she would have gone to the ends of the earth just to never see Marcus Nietta again. He was living his life to the fullest. And to think he used to laugh at the quiet Ana, who used to wander the school corridors like a shadow. And now this young woman couldn't be called plain. It was clear she took care of herself, and she was dressed stylishly and tastefully. Maybe she was just happy? They say when people feel happy, they look better, they blossom. Nina glanced back discreetly to watch the friendly family and didn't notice that the path had ended and it was time to turn towards home. She only snapped out of it when she crashed into the black Jeep parked opposite her house. "Oh, great," the girl muttered, trying to reverse. A scratch appeared on the polished surface of the car. "Just what I needed." "Need a hand?" a young man asked, opening the door. Nina tore her gaze away from the scratch and looked up. "Nina? Nina Hill?" "Yes," she said, bewildered. "Do I know you?" "Come on. I'm Soren Ortiz. Don't you remember me?" "Soren. I would never have recognized you. You've grown up so much. Where's that skinny boy who was always solving problems instead of living?" Nina was genuinely glad to see an old acquaintance, someone from her past life. "My daughter and I are going to live here now." Soren jumped out of the car and pointed to the house next to where he parked. "You're kidding. Right in front of my house?" "Yes. I used to walk around here in circles just to catch a glimpse of you for a moment." He looked Nina in the eyes. "You know, Soren, I've often thought about you." "I can't believe it. A nerd like me didn't interest you." "No, I mean, after that terrible accident." "What happened?" "I left right after graduation. I don't know anything about what happened here without me." "It's a long story, Soren. I'll tell you sometime if you want." Nina steered the stroller towards her house. "We'll settle in with Evita and definitely invite you over," Soren said, opening the trunk. "Soren, I scratched your car, it seems," Nina said guiltily. "I'm ready to take the punishment." "Nonsense. I was planning to repaint the car anyway. See you later." Until next time, Nina moved forward. "I wonder what would have happened if I had reciprocated Soren's feelings back then," Nina thought, sitting in her room. Soren couldn't take his eyes off her back then, but what about it? She started dating the handsome Marcus. That guy turned her head. She thought it was a love for life, but it was just a childish illusion. On that day, Nina hurried home after classes. Her mom asked for help around the house. Her mood was dismal. She had quarreled with her friend over some nonsense. Although it wasn't nonsense, at least not to her. Mia really liked Soren Ortiz. The girl desperately wanted to date him, but he only had eyes for his assignments and for Nina Hill. What do you want from me, Mia? Want me to drag him over to you by the hand? Or maybe promise to kiss him so he'll start dating you? You're arrogant, Mia yelled and stormed out of the classroom where they were arranging chairs on desks at the teacher's request. Yes, Nina went too far. She shouldn't have spoken like that. But it's hard to understand a girl who has just turned 16. Nina was always a bright girl, good at her studies, and into dancing. She even thought about making a career out of dancing. It's hard for her to understand someone who's pining over a botanist who only solves problems and sits on the windowsill, staring thoughtfully out the window. Nina flitted out of the school building. Kids were running around the yard in groups. Nina, she heard behind her. She turned around. It was Soren Ortiz. It was evident the guy was nervous. Maybe we could go to the movies, he timidly suggested. Soren, tired of your assignments already? Nina said mockingly. Switching to girls now? It's just. I've wanted to tell you for a while. I really like you, Nina. Soren, here's my advice, go to Mia, my classmate. She's been pining over you for a long time, maybe something will work out for you guys. Nina looked him straight in the eye. Her gaze was cold. It was as if she was mocking him. And you'll pine over Marcus Nieto, huh? Soren suddenly asked quite boldly. Well, go ahead, while there's still room on his moped. You'll be his next girlfriend for a couple of months. The guy abruptly turned around and walked away. Nina felt slightly uncomfortable. Not only did she argue with Mia and feel slightly guilty, but now this nerd Soren. Nina quickly headed home. Another unpleasant surprise awaited her there. Her father told her mother that he was leaving her. For some reason, Nina couldn't be angry with her father. She understood that living with her mother was a challenge. She was always dissatisfied with something, blamed her husband, and even her daughter for giving them her best years and getting only indifference in return. Rihanna wanted to be a model. She even started working with a fairly well-known photographer, but then found out she was pregnant. She had to marry Nina's father and become a mother and housewife. The dream of being a model had to be forgotten. Perhaps that's why the woman could never forgive herself for not choosing her career. Nina, forgive me, honey, her father said, loading things into the trunk. I love you very much and I'm ready to support you if you need it. You don't mind if we keep in touch, do you? No, Dad, of course not, Nina replied, hugging her father. I understand that you and Mom are different people. You shouldn't have gotten married at all and had a child. Nina, my girl, don't say that. Every day I thank heavens that you're in my life. They hugged once more, and Dad got behind the wheel. Mom was depressed, shutting herself in her room and refusing to come out. Nina didn't know what to do, how to calm her down, how to prove that life goes on. Mom, open up to me, asked her daughter, leaning against the door of her mother's bedroom. I don't want to talk, she answered deftly. I don't want to hear your accusations that I was a bad wife, so my father found a good one. Mom, I would never say such a thing. You are who you are, and I love you just the way you are. You're my mom. You can still find your soulmate. What are you talking about? Who needs me at 40? I don't even have a profession. You talk like you're 80. Mia's aunt got married at 42. Happily, by the way. The mother was silent. The girl heard only her occasional sobs. The girl decided to leave her mother alone and went to her room. Nina was pulled out of her gloomy thoughts by Melissa's call. Ale, Nina answered sourly. Hi. Listen, Nina, Marcus Nieto is having a party tonight. I was invited on the condition that I come with you. He seems to have a crush on you. The girl giggled merrily. Melissa, I don't feel like partying tonight, Nina said sadly. What's wrong? You like to party. I do, but it's just that my mom's upset and I have to support her. You know, girlfriend, sometimes it's better to leave your parents alone and go out and have fun. And this party is gonna be awesome. Come on. Come on. Don't you want to know why they asked me to take you along? I, for one, really want to. Okay, Mealy, I'll think about it. You have half an hour. The girl passed out. Strange, Nina thought, does Marcus really like me and decided to invite me to his party through Melissa? What if this party is even organized for that? Nina's heart raced. She, like many girls at school, liked Marcus Nieto. He was good-looking, funny, liked to ride his moped and throw parties, but at the same time, he was a shallow guy. Not a nerd like Soren Ortiz, but he had a good GPA. Marcus managed to do everything, party and still have enough time to study. Nina dialed Melissa's number. So, girlfriend, I see you're ripe for the picking, huh? You ready to turn Marcus' head? I'm ready to have a good time tonight, Nina said cheerfully. We'll pick you up at 8. Melissa went out with Bruno, Maris's friend. Shall we dance? Marcus took Nina's hand. Goosebumps ran down her body as the guy pulled her much closer to him than the dance required. Nina felt dizzy. She didn't realize whether it was from the cocktail or from the closeness with this handsome man. She didn't care. She didn't want to think, she just wanted to dance with Marcus, pressing herself against him and breathing in the scent of his expensive perfume. That night they never parted. Nina, let's be together, Marcus said suddenly. His face was very close, and a moment later the two merged in a kiss. Words were not needed. Nina agreed to be his girlfriend. They started dating. Nina's life changed drastically. Marcus was always looking to see her. Nina was just waiting to see him again. Her mother didn't forbid her to go out late at night. It was as if she didn't notice her daughter at all, always being depressed. It was a warm July evening. Nina fidgeted in front of the mirror, choosing what to wear. She and Marcus were going to another party. He was supposed to pick her up any minute. The girl glanced in the mirror and was pleased. A light blouse with black butterflies on a yellow background and dark pants made Nina especially fresh and attractive. Kiss me, Marcus asked, sitting behind the wheel of his moped. Nina nuzzled the guy's neck. No, a real kiss. He turned to face her and pressed his lips to the girl's. Make way, Marcus. Nina tried to interrupt this sweet kiss. But it was too late. A bump, a jolt, and she was thrown right onto the stone slab by the road, wild pain all over her body, darkness. Nina slowly emerged from the enveloping fog around her. It was difficult to breathe with tubes in her nose and throat. It was hard to open her eyes, the bright light was literally blinding. Nina struggled to move her hand. Awake, said the nurse standing nearby. Can you feel your legs? Nina didn't quite understand what she was talking about. She tried to move her legs, but couldn't. It was as if she couldn't even comprehend where her legs were. No, Nina replied softly. How about this? The nurse lifted the blanket and took a needle in her hand, leaning over the bed. Do you feel the injections? No, Nina murmured with dry lips. Oh, that's what Dr. Alonso was afraid of. The girl in the white coat looked puzzled. When Nina's parents came to pick her up from the hospital, at first glance they seemed like a real family. The doctor said, Nina's body is young, strong. It will all depend on her will to live. If the desire is strong, her body will have enough resources to recover, but if not. Nina's world collapsed. There could be no talk of dancing. She was a helpless invalid, her legs refusing to obey. And Marcus? He hadn't written or called her once. What if something terrible happened to him, and they just didn't tell her, fearing to traumatize her even more? Still, Nina asked on the way home, Mom, what about Marcus? Is he okay? He got away with a few scratches. He was thrown onto a pile of hay. Where is he? Did he ask about me? Nina looked hopefully at her mother. In our town, rumors spread like olive oil, her mother said sadly. He left for the capital. The new school year is starting soon. Nina's heart sank. Marcus lived his life, filled with new experiences, hopes, and events, but what awaited her? A wheelchair? Being confined at home? Nina didn't even want to think about such dreadful things. The girl needed to adapt to her new conditions. She had to move to a room on the ground floor, as the stairs were no longer for her. Her father came to visit her, but Nina hated those visits. He pitied her. He still loved her, but pity filled his heart. But the worst part was their constant fights with her mother. She found every convenient moment to say something about his young wife and how she had to give up her career as a model. At those moments, Nina literally wanted to be on a deserted island, or even better, to die and not see her wheelchair, her constantly quarreling parents, and this unreachable world anymore. Over time, visits from her father became rarer, and then stopped altogether. Nina missed her dad, with whom they always found a topic for conversation, but it was easier this way. No one pitied her, no one argued with her mom. Her mother gradually adjusted to the situation and even started working at the local store with a funny name, Hedgehog Brewer. What a hedgehog had to do with it remained a mystery. Nina laughed, saying that maybe the owner just really loved those little animals. Years passed, but Nina never had enough resources to start walking again. Her only solace was reading. She would read anything she could get her hands on, escaping into a world where she wasn't destined to sit in that cursed chair until death, a world full of wonders, incredible events, and heroes to root for. And it became less bitter for her own unhappy fate. At one point, Nina suddenly realized she wanted to write something too. She longed for something magical, unlike the mundane, gray life. Nina wanted to create a world where anything was possible. Everything was possible only in a fairy tale. That's why she began inventing fairy tale plots and writing them down. At first, it was difficult for her, it came out awkward and lifeless, but over time the characters began to come alive, and the events became vivid and lively too. One day, Nina submitted one of her most successful fairy tales to a children's online magazine. Imagine her surprise when they accepted her work and offered to collaborate. Now Nina was writing not just for her own pleasure, but also on commission. The girl had a small income now. 10 years passed. Sometimes Nina felt like fate was mocking her, taking away almost everything. Not only had she lost the ability to walk on her own 2 feet, but also this reminder of her past life. Nina often saw Marcus and his wife. Ana Blanco never stood out, neither in appearance nor in academics, just a typical average girl with a nondescript appearance. Why did Marcus choose her? He didn't even glance at such girls in school. Nina wondered why he didn't pick up some urban chick and instead returned to their hometown and married this dull mouse. After meeting Soren, Nina couldn't calm down for a long time. She sat in her room and thought. She thought about the past. Nina remembered how she laughed at the feelings of the modest guy, unaccustomed to courting girls and not spoiled by female attention. She caused him pain. It was visible in his eyes and in his tightly pressed lips. And he turned out to be right. She didn't sit behind Marcus Nita's moped seat for long. He didn't even talk to her, and now, upon meeting, he avoids eye contact, doesn't even greet her. Nina hated this man and his unremarkable wife. It was her, Nina, who was supposed to be happy. She was supposed to dance, and the audience was supposed to give her ovations and shout bravo. This hatred was destroying the girl. She understood it, but resolutely couldn't do anything about it. Nina withdrew more and more into her joyless little world. But one day, a faint ray of joy finally pierced through this impenetrable darkness. It happened when Nina aimlessly wandered through the web and stumbled upon a book, the author of which vividly demonstrated how to sculpt figures of people and animals from polymer clay. Nina's eyes lit up for the first time in years since that terrible accident that had turned her life upside down. And Nina began to learn to create beauty. The most interesting part was that she succeeded almost immediately, and then the girl began to invent her own ways to create this or that figure. Even her mom admired them, although everything else always bored and saddened her. "Nina, honey, you need to show these to someone. They're so alive. Oh, Mom, who would I show them to? Who? Well, there are different communities online. I don't need to tell you about them, darling. Maybe someday someone will see my toys. Nina smiled, wiping her hands with a napkin, slightly stained with paint. Another 13th of July arrived. On that day, Nina sat behind Marcus on his trusty bike, anticipating a fun time in the company of her favorite person. At night, Nina woke up several times from the same nightmare. Then she couldn't fall asleep until dawn. Her mother's voice woke her up. Nina, Soren Ortiz is asking for you. Should I say you're asleep? Soren? Are you sure you're not mistaken? No, he's waiting for you outside. There's a little girl with him. Mom, tell them to wait for me. I'll be there in a moment. Just need to freshen up. All right, I'll tell them. Her mother quietly left the room. Hi. Nina greeted, carefully descending the ramp. Hey. Soren jumped up to help. Do you want to take a walk with us? Where are you heading? We wanted to go to the beach, but there's sand. It would be uncomfortable for you. How about the park? Does that park with the statue of the violinist still exist? Yes, my mom and I occasionally go there. It's 100 times harder to drag my mom out of the house than me, Nina laughed. This is Evita, Soren pointed to the blonde girl with a blue butterfly clip in her hair, who had approached them. Hi. Nina greeted her. Hi. Is it true that you and Dad went to the same school? Yes, that's true, Nina replied. Is it true that you can't walk? Evita. Soren interrupted his daughter. It's okay, Nina reassured him. Yes, little one, that's true. You're beautiful. The girl came very close to Nina and ran her hand through her hair. Thank you, sweetheart. You're very beautiful too. You have your daddy's eyes. In the park, it was quiet. Evita happily rode her scooter, while Nina and Soren took a walk. He pushed her wheelchair confidently, as if he had done it many times before. They chatted about everything. Nina told him everything about herself without holding back. She felt that this young man truly listened to her, not just nodding politely and then forgetting everything you told him as soon as you said goodbye. You know, you might hit me on the head for saying this, but I'll say it anyway. Maybe it's necessary for some reason. I mean, you're tied to this chair. You know, for several years now, I've been trying to approach life philosophically, or whatever it's called. I read somewhere that if something in life isn't right for you, instead of asking why is this happening to me, you should ask what is this teaching me, and then many things become clear. Well, why do I need this disability then? Nina asked sadly. Just to suffer for the rest of my life? It's reasonable, of course, but... No, not for that. You need it so you can better understand that you are very strong, capable of overcoming many obstacles, and also that the Lord is protecting you from something. You see, it sounds strange, a terrible accident was necessary to prevent a disaster, but that's only at first glance. Sometimes a person misses a flight, which seems to determine their whole life, a business meeting, or some other important matter. They curse everything they can, and then they find out that the plane crashed. Soren, you're not just a lover of mathematical problems, Nina smiled. You're a real philosopher. For some reason, after this conversation, Nina felt warmth in her heart and, strangely, she wanted to live. She wanted to catch sight of how a mischievous ray of sunshine breaks through the dense foliage of trees, how a little bird sits on a thin branch and starts chirping, swaying rhythmically and ruffling its feathers slightly. Yes, she was bound to a wheelchair and couldn't walk along this park path, but she still had the opportunity to feel this world, to discern what resonated in her soul. She could describe it in her next fairy tale or even create something else, a story or a novel. Soren, sorry for meddling, but... Nina suddenly began, where's Evita's mom? Pilar died in childbirth. He stopped near a bench. Do you mind if we stay here for a while? Nina nodded. The spot was so cozy, quiet and conducive to heartfelt conversations. Pilar and I met at university and started dating right away. After a while, we got married and lived with my parents. We studied, worked part-time, and dreamed of our own home. I told her about my hometown. Can you imagine? She was so eager to move here, she didn't like the hustle and bustle of the capital. I probably wouldn't have loved it either, Nina sighed. We wanted our baby to be born after we had settled in life, but not all of us decide, not at all. Pilar got pregnant. Everything was going well, but my wife didn't survive childbirth. The doctors couldn't do anything. How awful. How difficult it is to lose a loved one, especially the mother of your child. Yes, it was tough. I wasn't prepared for such a turn, and who can be prepared? You loved her very much, didn't you? Nina asked softly, placing her hand on his. You know, I didn't love Pilar right away. At first, I just wanted to forget you. Nina felt a shiver run down her spine. She felt a prick of conscience. Back when she was still just a girl, she carelessly redirected that guy to Mia, never considering how deeply it would wound him when he loved her, the fool, truly loved her. Nina couldn't hold back the tears any longer. They just kept rolling down her cheeks, and she didn't even try to stop them. Nina, are you okay? Soren asked sympathetically, offering her a tissue. Forgive me, Soren, forgive me, she replied. Forgive you? For what? There's nothing for me to forgive you for. You shouldn't be so hard on yourself. No, it's not that. I haven't had such a heartfelt conversation with anyone in 10 years. I was such a fool back then, when you asked me to the movies. Forgive me. Silly girl. We were just kids back then. Yes, I really wanted to be with you, but you needed something else, not my nerdy self. Remember how everyone laughed and said that first came the bookworm, and then Soren Ortiz followed behind? Yes, exactly. But you shouldn't call yourself nerdy. That's not true. You're a very sensitive person. Evita is lucky to have you as a father. Really lucky. You know, if you ever need anything, I'm ready to help. Maybe you'll need someone to watch over Evita. Thank you, Nina. I think I'll have to turn to you more than once. Sometimes I need to travel for work, and Evita doesn't handle long journeys well, she gets motion sick. You bravely took on the task of raising your daughter, all on your own, without anyone's help. Initially, my parents helped, but now my daughter is all grown up, we manage just fine, he smiled softly, his eyes filled with tenderness. I never imagined I could love someone as much as I love Evita. It hurts terribly when we have to part, even for a short while. You're a godsend as a father, Nina smiled. If one can say that. They sat a little longer and then went to look for Evita. She had already found some seeds somewhere and was feeding the pigeons. Nina. Daddy. Look how cute they are, the girl looked at the birds affectionately. Yes, birds are messengers from heaven, Nina said. If you want to tell something to God, feed them and share your secret with them. Really? Evita looked at Nina with interest. Nina nodded, and the three of them headed home. Will you come visit us? The girl asked when they were near Nina's house. Absolutely, she promised. See you soon. That day Nina cried a lot, but several fairy tales were born. How much she missed a kindred soul, someone she could simply talk to, share her pain with, and let her tears flow freely. Imagine, the guy she so rudely turned down became closer to her than her own mother, not only listening but also offering the perfect support. It was a rainy day. The gloomy sky hung over the earth, as if trying to crush it and not let it breathe. Nina sat at her writing desk. Not a single plot came to mind. Annoying thoughts crept in that loneliness would accompany her for the rest of her life. The ringing of the phone broke her reverie. It was Soren. Hey! Nina felt a joy akin to what she felt when Marcus called her many years ago. Hey, dear. Are you busy today? Yes. I have an audience at the royal palace and a dozen dances promised to the most distinguished gentlemen, Nina replied with a laugh. What a shame, I wanted to invite you over. You know what? I think I'll cancel my social outing and accept your invitation. Nina's heart skipped a beat with joy. They were having tea in the living room. Evita chattered cheerfully and showed Nina her drawings and clay crafts. The girl hadn't made any friends yet. After all, she and her father had only recently arrived, and the new school year hadn't started yet. Soren's phone rang, and he stepped out to take the call. Girls, he said upon returning a few minutes later, I urgently need to attend to some matters. Duty calls. The bank will collapse if I don't show up at the main office. Can you manage without me? I think I'll be back in 3 or 4 hours. Of course, we'll manage. Evita exclaimed joyfully. Go ahead without worries, Nina replied. We'll find something to do. Soren looked gratefully at his high school sweetheart. Soren left, leaving Nina and Evita alone. Nina had no idea how to interact with children, but Evita took the initiative. The girl first dragged literally everything from her room to the living room to show Nina, as Nina couldn't manage to get to the second floor. She enthusiastically showed her collection of insects and capsules and crafts made from some special gaming tape. Nina couldn't believe how imaginative Evita was. You know, the girl said when they decided to have lunch, I think you're an enchanted fairy. You need to be unenchanted, and then you'll walk again. Do you really think so? Nina asked seriously, though a smile was threatening to appear on her face. I'm telling you for sure. Oh, dear, if only I knew how to break the spell, I'd gladly do it. It's just not your time yet, Evita said mysteriously. But it will come soon, I feel it. Do you want me to show you my dolls? Nina asked. Dolls from your childhood? No, the ones I make myself. You make dolls? The girl's eyes lit up, and she couldn't sit still. Show me quick. Nina opened the box she had packed in her backpack just in case, preparing to visit Soren and his daughter. How lovely. These are like the dolls from my dream. They're alive. Do you want me to give you one of them? For me? You'd give it to me? Aren't you going to miss it? No, we're friends, aren't we? I also have animal figurines, but they're at home. I've got a whole collection. Will you show me? Definitely, next time we meet. I would love to make such dolls too, Evita said dreamily. I may not be a great teacher, but I can try to teach you something. And that was their agreement. The day was nearing its end, and Soren still hadn't returned. He texted, saying he was delayed and asked not to leave the girl until he arrived. Nina moved from her armchair to the sofa in the living room, and they sat, looking through photographs. Nina, tell me an interesting story, the girl suddenly asked, closing the photo album. What kind of story? A magical one? A magical one would be nice, she agreed. And Nina told her young companion a few fairy tales she had recently composed. How interesting. My dad always tells me about numbers, it's boring. Where did you read these stories? Evita looked closely at Nina. I made them up myself, she simply replied. I told you, you're a fairy. You probably even have a magic wand. I haven't found anything like that, Nina laughed. It was so nice to talk to this little girl. There was no need to play a role, hide anything, or pretend something was real when it wasn't. The girl didn't even suspect that she would find solace in the company of a 7-year-old. They fell asleep on the living room couch, cuddled together under a blanket. Nina was living her usual life. But still, something had changed. The girl spent quite a lot of time with Evita. She watched with fascination as Evita worked on her plastic figures, diligently trying to imitate everything Nina did. Nina was even surprised by the little girl's diligence. Nowadays, most kids prefer gadgets and entertainment, but Evita was completely unlike them, as if she had come from another time to our days. One day, Evita surprised Nina. Nina, do you mind if I talk about you at school? Who will you tell? She wondered. We'll have an evening where everyone who wants to can talk about an amazing person. I want to talk about you. What's so amazing about me? The girl was astonished. Everything. You're a storyteller and a sculptor in one bottle. And also, you're enchanted. Sweetie, I somehow think no one will be interested in listening to me, but if you insist, I agree. Let's bring your toys and fairy tales too. Evita jumped around Nina, unable to sit still. She was overflowing with joy and some incredible excitement. The evening of amazing people arrived. Nina was nervous. She hadn't been in her old school for 10 years. Along with fear, the girl felt curiosity about how everything had changed there, whether there would be familiar faces. The evening was organized somewhat unusually. It wasn't held in the auditorium, as usual, but in the schoolyard, in a tent specially set up for this event right in the middle. Each participant stepped into the center of the circle and made their presentation. A projector was provided, displaying images of people and their achievements mentioned in the presentations. Without exception, all the kids talked about some geniuses of the past who had contributed to science or art. It was Evita's turn. I want to talk about a fairy. The girl began. She didn't look like a fairy from fairy tales at all. Her name is Nina Hill. Nina, by the way, used to study at our school. Applause erupted. So, Evita continued, we became friends recently, but we've become very good friends. Nina writes such interesting fairy tales and stories that anyone will listen and forget about everything else. And Nina also teaches me to sculpt dolls and animal figures. Here are some photos. The girl pointed to the screen, where photos of their toy sculptures appeared. Applause erupted again. Let's invite this mysterious fairy here, said the hostess in a bright yellow dress and a hat with a black feather. The audience clapped and started looking around. No one could have imagined that the fairy was confined to a wheelchair. Soren wheeled Nina to his daughter in the center of the circle. Here's my fairy, Evita smiled. She's still enchanted and sitting in a special chair. But soon she'll grow wings again. An evil witch once got angry with Nina and deprived her of her flying gift. Please tell us a bit about yourself, the hostess requested, handing the girl the microphone. Hello. I'm Nina Hill. I did indeed study at this school. I used to dream of becoming a dancer, but fate decided otherwise. Perhaps it wasn't my path, and to prevent me from making a mistake, it essentially took away my legs. At first, it was very difficult. But you know what became my salvation? In the tent, there was complete silence. Books. I read them. I lived the lives of the characters, escaping from my dull world into theirs, bright and marvelous, full of adventures or events that made me laugh or cry. And then I wanted to write something too. And I did. And I continue to write, Nina said. And dolls? The host asked. Yes, dolls, that's a separate story, Nina said dreamily. She stopped being embarrassed. She didn't care anymore how she looked or what the children and adults gathered here thought of her. Who taught you to create such beauty? The host shook her head, the feather on her hat swaying like a sail in the wind. A book I found on the internet. Or rather, its wonderful author. I followed the instructions. At first, it turned out terribly. But it was only the first attempt, and then I plunged into the world of creativity. Can you imagine? I even had to buy a set of dental tools. They're convenient to use for sculpting. I work with miniatures. Thank you, Nina. And a huge thank you to you, Evita. Thank you for introducing us to this amazing person living here and now. It was very interesting, the host said. The tent erupted in applause. As everyone began to disperse, a woman approached Nina. Senorita Hill, would you agree to teach the children miniature sculpting? Well, I don't even know, I'm not a teacher. I don't even have a pedagogical education. In fact, I don't have one at all, just school, Nina replied. That doesn't matter, at least for now. And where? Nina asked with interest. Right at the school. We have a studio for applied creativity. I don't think you'll have a shortage of students. Nobody in our town practices this. We'll discuss all the conditions regarding salary. I would be happy to try, not sure if it will work, but I agree. Then please leave me your phone number. I'll contact you as soon as everything is clarified. Nina dictated her number, and they said goodbye. That night, sleep eluded Nina. At first, she just lay there, staring at the ceiling, but when that became unbearable, she moved from the bed to her chair, rolled up to the table, and turned on the lamp. She wanted to create. Just think, the lovely little girl Evita, the daughter of the one she had so rudely rejected back in her school days, today gave her, albeit a small one, but still a star hour. The applause literally made her head spin. People were interested in what she had to say, interested in her life, her view of the world. It hadn't been like this for many years. Had it ever been like this at all? Now Nina felt like it hadn't. Nina Hill had been working in the studio for several weeks, teaching kids of different ages how to create sculptures out of plastic. Nina felt like a truly sought-after specialist. Her students loved her, and their parents appreciated her. School teachers began to notice that the handwriting of those students who attended sculpture classes had improved, and their overall academic performance had also gotten better. Could a girl, who had been bound to a wheelchair for 10 years, ever dream of such things? She could. But she didn't dare. Nina, her mother began one day, "You look so happy lately. Are you in love, by any chance?" "No, Mom, it's all because of my work. The successes of my students lift me up so much." "I somehow thought it might have to do with Soren Ortiz," her mother smiled. "No, Mom, Soren is just a very good friend, that's all." Ouch. Nina winced in pain. "What happened, sweetheart?" her mother worried. "My legs are tingling," Nina struggled to say. "What? You're feeling your legs?" "Nina, do you remember what the doctor said?" About the reserves, she continued to wince, asking. "Yes, exactly. It seems, my dear, your reserves are replenished, and your legs decided to join in. But that can't be, they haven't worked for over 10 years, and now. You simply truly wanted to live," her mother glowed with happiness. Nina hadn't seen her like this in years, maybe never. "Try wiggling your toes," the doctor said calmly. "How?" Nina was surprised. "Just try. Imagine you just need to move your toes, it doesn't matter that you haven't walked in over 10 years. Nina focused and tried her best to comply with the doctor's request. The attempt failed. Instead, a strong pain pierced through her legs from thigh to toe. "Ah!" Nina cried out. "It hurts so much. Unbearably much. What does this mean?" "It means that the muscles are gradually starting to work, as well as the blood vessels, veins, nerves, in short, the whole system is kicking in. Now, regular massages are needed, even self-massage, and it would also be very good to swim in the sea. Seawater is a powerful remedy." "I understand. I will try to follow all your recommendations." Nina left the office. In the corridor, her mother, Evita, and Soren were waiting for her. Soren volunteered to drive them home. "What did the doctor say?" Soren asked. "He said I need to swim in the sea," Nina smiled. "Really?" her mother asked. "Yes, it's true. My lower limbs are starting to work. I'm such a fool." Soren slapped his forehead. "Why didn't we do this sooner? So, let's do it right now." Evita hugged Nina. "Wait, I'm not ready." Nina protested. "I don't even have a swimsuit. I don't think what I wore over 10 years ago will fit me anymore." "I have a swimsuit," Evita exclaimed. "It's really cool. Very sporty. Darling, yours definitely won't fit me, Nina laughed. It's not mine, it's my mom's. She was just like you. Let's go to our house now, and you can try it on. A warm feeling spread throughout Nina's body. How great it was when there were people around. People who cared about you and whom you were ready to love just because they were there for you. Another wave of pain ran through her legs. But it wasn't as sharp this time, more like the feeling you get when you've been sitting in one position for too long and pins and needles start to creep in. Let's start with ice cream, Nina suggested. Everyone agreed. We'll just celebrate the autumn holidays, Evita exclaimed joyfully and ran towards the clinic's exit. Everyone hurried after her. You never know, all the ice cream might be sold out. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.